Larry Howard with the first comment. What's going on, brother? How's everybody doing tonight? Hope y'all are having a good night. So tonight we have Dré Williams with DWxotics. What's up, Chess? You got your boy in here tonight, man. This one is gonna be fire. He has a awesome collection. I've been following him for a while, and I'm excited to have someone who isn't just a ball python breeder or isn't a breeder yet right now, and does it for the love of the hobby, right? So without further ado, let's get Dré on here. What's going on, brother?
What's going on, man?
Living the dream, man. You know, we get to do this every day. How you doing?
Right. I'm good, man. How about yourself?
I am good. I'm hanging in there. I had a little bit of disappointment yesterday. I have a pair of Demerals boas, and you know what those are, right?
Oh, one of my top favorite boas right there.
Yeah. She slugged out on me and had one baby that was stillborn. It was tough, but you know it's part of the game when you breed them.
Right.
But you know, life goes on, man. I don't know. I don't know if it was something that I did as far as heat wise, but I'm pretty confident it was just the fact that I didn't pair them long enough and didn't get enough locks. And I only seen two, but you know, it is what it is.
Yeah, it was one of my top favorite snakes. I don't know too much about breeding them, but it's definitely one of my favorites. I plan on adding soon, but we'll see.
So let's talk a little bit about the snakes that you keep, reptiles that you keep, because I know you don't just have snakes. What kind of animals do you have, man?
Yeah, so the bulk of my channel is mostly based around the snakes. You know, everything from common boas to blood pythons, green tree pythons, carpet pythons, white lip pythons. I got 12 snakes total, so I got a couple. Every snake is a different species. But as far as non-snakes, I have tegu, Mexican beaded lizard, and a caiman. I had Schneider's dwarf caiman. So those are my three. Which again, I'll be adding more, but as of now, that's what I'm working with.
Nice, man. I got a high white and red tegu, and I love her. She's sometimes vicious, but she is definitely a pretty girl. How is your tegu demeanor wise?
Oh, he's psycho for sure.
Yeah,
he's a powder blue.
Yeah.
I named him Nipsey for obvious reasons, but I got him and he was kind of in that that teenage phase. So
right.
I've been working with him and I moved. So I haven't been able to deal with him as much as I want. So I still do short interactions, feeding him, giving him water and everything like that, but he's still quick to bite. But I mean, again, like you said, that's just kind of what we deal with. You got to know what you're getting yourself into. I mean, ain't no getting a reptile and getting rid of it because it's too mean. Just deal with it, grow them up the best you can. And to be honest, when you deal with so many different reptiles, you got to understand that not every single one is going to be friendly.
Yep.
So I'm just that's just my one animal. Even out of the caiman, and the beaded lizard, he is the worst one for me to deal with. And I think that's mostly because the other two are still small. But as of now, he's about 30. He's about 3 foot.
Okay.
So he's got that tail whip. He's at that perfect size where he's elusive. He's ready to eat on sight.
Yeah, just where he can definitely do some damage too. Do you?
Oh yeah.
As far as like what's your process with that, man? Because I'm going through this right now. Like I've made a post. I don't know if you've seen it in the bro group where I was talking about tegu puberty. I'd seen videos, or it seemed like she was good until like I don't know 3 months ago, man. And I can't open the enclosure without her coming out. And I mean, I'll open it up. I'll let her out. She'll roam around, and she's good. I try not to remember not to wear sandals or anything. Being barefoot. She'll see my toe wiggle.
I had to learn that the hard way.
Oh yeah, I'm not trying to get bit by her. I've seen what she does to her prey, and it is not gonna happen to me at all. So what's your process with that, man?
So initially, before I move, I glove up with him for sure, just because, not necessarily because I'm scared of him, but because he's so fast and quick. I don't want to hurt him, and I don't want him to hurt himself. There's been a couple times where he'll whip his tail and bite, and then he'll bite his tail. So really? I'm like, all right, yeah. So I'm like, all right, bro, you got to calm down. So it's more so just so I can restrain him properly without him digging his claws into my arm. But for the most part, initially before I moved, I was handling him about 2 to 3 times a week. I didn't want to do too much, but I wanted to do just enough to where he would get used to me. And what I would do is I would kind of coax him out with the mouse, let him walk out on his own. I didn't go in there and grab him.
Same. I do the same.
After he ate that mouse, I would go to the other side of the room and just sit on the floor, let him walk around. He would crawl all over my lap. As long as he was out, he was fine. But it's like
Right.
getting him out of his enclosure is the issue. But basically, I moved out of my apartment and I moved back to my parents' house until my apartment's ready. So I can't let him roam because he's just gonna go.
My bad.
Straight under the bed. You're all right.
Just had a picture fall off the wall. That's
Oh,
crazy.
you good? I can't let him roam because he's gonna go straight under the bed, and I'm not trying to deal with that. So now, unfortunately, everything I do is in the enclosure. So I still glove up. He has his days where he'll let me pet him. He's still kind of fidgety, but then he has days when he's like full on charging, like leave me alone.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to still involve myself where I can to let him know my presence is still known. But when we get everything moved back, set back up over the new place, we'll definitely jump back in heavy and get it together. But
So you pretty much, treat it day by day and treat them like an individual, not generalizing the species.
Right.
And that's kind of what I've had to adapt to. Being a ball python guy is kind of like you have a set of standards, and you're like everything pretty much kind of falls in this parameter, and you, to an extent, like you definitely still have to read the snakes, and each one still is an individual. But when it comes to the lizards, man, and the berry, like they are, you can definitely tell that they have a higher thinking, a higher intellectual capacity.
Yes.
I'm right there with you. I'm gloving up every time. In that post I had asked, or talked about it. I think I had my glove on. Yeah, I did. And not in that group, but another group, everybody was like, "You gotta take the glove off. It's the only way. If you get bit, you get bit." And I'm just like, "Well, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna take my baby steps, and then we'll get there when we get there." So yeah, it definitely is a interesting species to keep. This is my first one. Other than the tegu, I have bearded dragons. I did have 2 mangrove monitors, but man, they require a great deal of attention. Hopefully my buddy hops in here in the chat. He has it now, my male at least, or the male that I had. What were you about to say?
No, I've actually had a couple myself.
Yeah.
But with it being semi-arboreal and semi-aquatic, as well as them being very skittish. Like I've seen very few of them actually tame and calm when people hold them. So that was probably one animal that I'm just like, yeah, that's not for me. But going back to what you said about some of the comments you received about people saying you gotta take the glove off, that's kind of why I do what I do, just to get people to understand that there's all types of information and education out there, but where I guess I'm different and where I separate myself from is everybody kind of believes in the same thing, but I'm a believer in you can do different things to achieve the same goal. There's different ways to accomplish the same thing. So people are like, no, you got to do it this way. That's not necessarily true. And a lot of that information out there is going to be outdated. So that's why I always tell people in all of my videos, do your research. Even me, don't come to my videos and take my word for it, because this is me talking to you from my standpoint, from the research that I've done, from my experience. Still get out there, do your research. And like you said, every animal is different. I've seen nice boas and I've seen mean ball pythons. So don't take what someone says, into consideration and wait and take that as, cold hard truth on everything you do, because not always like that.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you really have to think about it, on how it all started, right? So one person, the first person who ever kept this species of snakes, or the species of any reptile, did it. And, whether it was they actually went to their natural habitat and observed them, and then, they went and did research that scientists had put in articles and stuff like this, and then they adapted their rules and how they kept them. And then that spread. And then people who started keeping these animals, who thought different, thought outside the box, who noticed different things, because we as individuals, people, interpret stuff differently. We interpret body language and the things that the reptiles do differently. I know I've literally been standing beside somebody and pointed out something, and they were like, if you would not told me that, I would have never known. And it's obvious to me, but again, you know, it kind of goes back to how you think. So if you think about it like that, and then those people who decided to try something different and found that, oh, well, they seem to be more happier in this type of environment. That's how we got to a husbandry guideline, and then they seem to do better and grow at a more steady rate with this feeding guideline. That's how we got feeding guidelines, you know. So, but again, like you said, it's not the Bible. It is a guideline. Can go left or right, and should be taken with a grain of salt, type of deal, you know.
Yep.
Yeah, man. Do you keep any bearded dragons? I know you said.
So I actually started off breeding bearded dragons. That was my
Okay.
first thing. Back when I was 19, I had about 11. So that's what I was breeding. Currently, no, I don't keep any.
Okay.
Breeding bearded dragons is a lot.
Yeah.
You take
Yeah.
the work of a lizard and and you breed them, and then bearded dragons can be messy. They eat everything, literally fruits, veggies, bugs, everything, and then they poop like crazy.
Yeah.
It's a lot after a while, but currently, no, I don't keep any bearded dragons. Just the three, the beaded, the caiman, and the tegu, and then there's a tortoise amongst the snakes as well. But that's it.
Gotcha. How is the beaded lizard? I was telling my wife about that. We came across a post maybe 2 weeks ago before we went on vacation, and I was like, "You see this thing?" See, I don't know which one yours is, but I know there's like two different species. There's a Mexican beaded lizard, and then just a normal beaded lizard. Is that correct?
There's a couple different ones.
Okay.
I'm no expert on them, so they have like like your subspecies. So like there's Heridum, there's Heridum exasperatus, there's suspectum, there's a couple different ones. Mine personally, I'm pretty sure it's exasperatum, but he is everything I expected a beaded lizard to be, so we definitely glove up with him, just because of their sheer nature. A lot of people don't like to wear gloves because they think gloves associate them with some type of weakness, and
Right.
for me, when you understand your animals, you understand what they're capable of, so you have to give them that
Yeah.
respect as they so
Yeah.
deserve.
Yeah.
Although they're not known to give fatal bites, it's still not a bite I want to take.
Yeah. Isn't
So
it semi-venomous, or
no,
like you
they're
have a?
actually venomous.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're actually venomous. It's not so. It's not as potent as like a cobra or rattlesnake or anything like that,
Right.
but it delivers enough venom and bacteria to cause enough pain, and you can swell up.
Yeah.
And if you're allergic to that type of venom, then it's going to be really bad for you. So
Right. Right.
it's nothing like, oh my gosh, you're going to die instantly, as long as you're not allergic. However, it's still something to be taken serious.
Yeah. I'm gonna say hey to a couple people here in the chat. We got Marcus and Casey. How's it going, guys? Krishan's done stopped in. What's going on, brother?
GP.
Yeah, man. Big time supporter. So on the real quick, just on the Tegu real quick, just want to touch on that. What size enclosure do you recommend? Do you run? And would you suggest, for people looking to get into Tegus or have Tegus? And like myself, I have a 4x2x2 currently, and that was one thing that a lot of people said would make her not come out like that, is having a bigger enclosure.
A lot of people believe having a bigger enclosure, makes them calm down. And to be honest, I think people just kind of forget that it's really the animal that has to react to it. So it could go either way. Mine is currently in a 4x2x2 as well. And I mean, he has plenty of room, but again, I mean, he's territorial. I think just the sheer nature of these animals, I think people forget just because they're captive that they still have that natural behavior. And I think the one thing we do as a community is we get so focused on trying to tame or domesticate an animal that we don't realize that this animal is still going to be that animal. Even dogs. I mean, there's still certain things that they do that naturally they're going to do because we can't take it out of them. So I think once you research your animal and you understand them, the better you will be able to serve them, as their caretaker, because you will know why they do certain things. You will know why, they behave a certain way. And again, I think certain people just are just so quick to deem every animal as aggressive, which I hate
Yeah.
that term. But they're so quick to deem them as aggressive versus actually understanding why. Reptiles do everything for a reason.
Yeah.
So,
But funny story. I know she's watching. But I gotta put this out there. I was just telling my wife that
mhm.
I have not come across an aggressive reptile. I actually have a local breeder here that I was talking to about this as well.
Mhm.
And they're both pertaining to bearded dragons.
Okay.
Now, not saying that there may not be one out there that is like a straight off the chain pit bull, but I have not came off the cart. The reason that they are the way that they are, which we're referring to not being the type of bearded dragon you throw on your head and walk through the supermarket and they're sitting there mouth open ready to, if you touch me, I'm gonna get you.
Right.
The reason that they're doing that is because they're scared. They're defensive, right?
Mhm.
The other reason that reptiles will bite is for food. And those are the only two things that I've ever come across as why they bite or why they're going to bite: food and scared.
Yeah, and that's something I've literally explained. I literally just did a little TikTok video last week, and I basically explained like um I basically explained to people like snakes don't chase people. Stop
Nah,
saying that. They don't
never
chase
have.
people. And even still now, I still got people like arguing with me in the comments, and I'm just like, I'm not about to argue with you about it. I said what I said. Um, and that's again why education is important. When you relying on the news and TV for your education, you don't believe anything you want to hear. But when you speak to people who actually work with these animals, live with these animals, and have education, some people I know actually have degrees in working with these animals. It's just like, how can you
Right.
argue with that? Facts,
Yeah.
facts. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. They definitely do not chase people. That's a lot of people. It's like I'll run from a bee. They're gonna chase you. But it's like I'm not gonna run from a snake. The fact is that when you see that snake says, "Oh shit," just like you
It-
say, "Oh shit," and run. Both of y'all at the same time. You never seen it because you was running, and so it's one of those things where you really just have to understand how the logic is of reptiles in general. You're huge. Most reptiles are small, and they're gonna see you as a giant, right?
and that's the only thing that I broke it down was like, how can a snake be an ambush predator yet it chases people? That's
Yeah,
the opposite of ambush.
yeah,
You gotta
exactly.
wait for it to come to you and pounce on it. And some people still don't know.
What's going on,
What's
BJ? So I got a question
going on,
for
man?
you. If you are up to answering this here, Larry Howard says, "Can you treat a boa for mites the same way as you can a ball python?"
It's going to depend on the process you're using. First and foremost, you got to clear out everything out of that enclosure. Soak your boa. Use nothing but paper towel. Me personally, I throw out all of my decorations. I don't want to reuse them. I don't care if you bleach it or whatever. That's just me personally. If you decide to bleach them and clean them out, you feel they're safe, by all means. But yeah, it's going to depend on how bad the issue is. I use Nix. Works pretty good
Okay.
for me. But the most important thing is going to be cleaning out that enclosure so they can't breed. Keeping an eye on it. I use paper towel because it's easy to see the mites in the paper towel. And to be honest, I just repeat the process until I don't see the mites anymore. And once I feel safe, then I'll put them back on the substrate. But I also make sure it's not in the substrate as well. But it's really, really going to be important that as soon as you see it, you wipe that, you get that enclosure cleared out. Me, I use to clear it out, I use bleach water solution, wipe it down to disinfect it, paper towel, literally paper towel, water bowl, and hide. That's all I put in there for any quarantine, any type of enclosures like that.
Absolutely. Totally Enchanting says, "Hello, how's it going?" Um,
Tamara.
so use Nix.
Hmm.
I've never used Nix. I use Ivermectin. Have you ever
Okay.
used it?
I've never heard of it. Oh, I used it. So when I was a teenager, I actually worked at a reptile store. That's just always what we used was Nix. So that's just what I've always used. And it always seemed to work. Nix or Might Off. Might Off was okay, but I wanted
Might have.
something like a little, I guess a little more premium, a little stronger, and Nix seemed to do the trick for me. But those are the two I'm familiar with.
I got you. And for you all that may be watching who haven't experienced mites or don't know what snake mites are, they are a parasite that will infest your snakes. I believe snake mites are only subjective to snake host. There are other different types of mites that can um, affect different sorts of reptiles. Correct me if I'm wrong here. I just had a conversation with the guy last night. He was stating that on another guy's post that the guy had his snakes on the grass, and he was like, that's a good way to get mites. That he had some that he had to treat because he got mites from the grass, and where that might be true, he might have gotten the mites from the grass. I just stated that the mites didn't come from the grass because they are a parasite. I was actually talking to Chess about this earlier today. You have any insight on that, man? Because I noticed that you had a post, had a couple of your snakes out, beautiful by the way. Ever caught mites from the grass?
I have not. So,
me neither.
And I was actually just about to mention that. So I literally just had my snakes out on Sunday. And this was actually their first time out in the grass. Because if you look at all my posts, I've never put them on the ground. To be honest, I'm more so worried about pesticides than I am about mites because where I was living, they treat it all the time. But since I'm back at home, they don't treat out here. So everything is just all natural. So I've never had an issue with it. I mean, I can't really speak on a preventative. I guess the best way to prevent it is to not put them in the grass. But I mean, that's personal preference. I never had an issue with it. But again, that's one of those things where it's going to come up to personal preference and how you feel about it. I feel, the grass out here is fine. I don't have any issues. I had someone also speak on it like, well, do your neighbors have dogs? Do they pee in the grass? Well, we were up near the front of the house to where the dog will come up there. Because I have a dog, but he goes out back. But the neighbors will sometimes come in with dogs pee. But I just keep them up near the house to where it's not near the edge of the grass. But as far as mites, also, I mean, what you can do is it's going to depend on how long you're leaving them out there. I was out there for like 10, 15 minutes. I pick up my snakes, inspect them. If I see anything wrong, then we'll go. But other than that, I feel like a lot of people will just kind of leave their snakes outside for long periods of times to where they have those issues. But I mean, it depends. Personal preference. I'm neither for or against. Well, I'm obviously for it, but it really just depends on how you feel about it.
Yeah. I use a preventative in all of my enclosures, and it is a little cut piece of square off of a strip called Hot Shot. Have you ever heard of it?
I'm not.
All right, let me get this real quick. I'll be right back. All right, so I may be just getting lucky, or it works. I take one of these. There are no pest strip Hot Shots, and I'll go ahead and open it up, and I'll take it and I will cut it into 1 inch by 1 inch squares, and I put those in every single one of my tubs, every single one of my enclosures, every single one of not the lizards. I don't do it with the lizards, but all my snakes. They
definitely try to eat it.
Yep. I've never had any type of issues with a reaction to the scales. I've never had any respiratory issues. I've never had any negative, only the positive that I've never had a mite outbreak in my reptile room when I know for a fact that I've had people bring mites into my reptile room. I had a guy who didn't have an incubator, but bred snakes. Irresponsible, but neither here nor there. Said, come on, man, I'll incubate the eggs for you. And when he brought the eggs over, they had mites crawling all over top of them. It was disgusting. But mites are a thing that if you're in it long enough, you're gonna have to deal with. But anyway, this is what it looks like. Looks like a piece of cheese.
Okay, yeah, I actually have seen that before.
Yep. And the way that I was seeing that it was showed is they would take it and put it underneath the water bowl, water cup, whatever you use. I actually throw it in the back. back where they'll lay and stuff like that. Now, along with not having a mite outbreak in my reptile room, and I take these are supposed to last 3 to 4 months, and every 3 months I'll do a new one. One of these strips will do like 20 tubs or something like that. Along with not having mites, I also don't deal with little flying gnats too. I don't know a lot of people deal with.
Now for that in Ohio, as you can imagine, it gets pretty humid here. In the summertime, we get a lot of mites flat. So I do use the little strips that you hang.
Yeah,
those work great. Especially like I said in the full blown summer when it's just hot and humid and there's no like storm door there. You just open your door and a fly get in real quick. Those work great. But other than that, I don't really have to use anything else. I clean my tubs pretty thoroughly to where, because also people don't realize you can get mites from dirty enclosures. So if you go too long or if it's too wet and you're not cleaning it properly, letting poops sit in there, urate sit in there, you're going to have an issue, whether it be, like you said, there's different types of mites. I'm not trying to deal with any of them.
Yeah.
I was cleaning out my tortoise enclosure. This was like, probably like sometime last year. I forgot that I put springtails in the enclosure. And I seen bugs and I went crazy. I forgot I put them in there because I'm not used to having a cleanup crew. So if I see any type, I don't care if it's a gnat or if it's in my tub, the whole tub's getting clean. Which I haven't had an issue. I've only had an issue on one occasion with respiratory, 2 occasions with respiratory. I don't know if you've seen my big boa Luther, about 6.5 foot. And I actually took him in.
Yes.
Yeah, I actually took him in. Just a young couple. They weren't prepared to care for a big snake. They got him big. They had him for I want to say a couple months. I ended up taking him in. Took him to the. I mean, I knew it was respiratory. He had a big snot bubble come out of his nose, and I'm like, yeah, it's not supposed to happen.
Yeah.
So I quarantined him, and he stayed in my bathroom in his tank because he was 6 foot and a 40 breeder, so that was already an issue. And then he had the respiratory, so I had to take him to the vet. And can you imagine injecting a 6.5 foot snake twice every 2 days? He was pissed. Yeah. So the first 2 months he was with me, dude wanted to take my head off. And even then, I didn't glove up with him. I just used a snake hook. I would let him just kind of roam around on the floor until he got comfortable with me picking him up to where we are now. Now we're perfectly fine. And then the second time was with my white lip. Got him off I made the mistake. I got him off of Backwater Reptiles. And so here's the thing with that. A lot of people, they hear the story and they're just like, why would you buy from them?
Yeah.
I'm the type of person that I don't take other people's advice. What you say about another person isn't going to change how I view them because that happened between you and that person. There's a lot of people that hate underground reptiles. I bought from them twice. I've never had a bad experience. So I can't relate to your experience. I'm not saying you're lying, but my experience is my experience. Your experience is your experience. Yep. So with that being said, I bought the white lip. He came in. He was cool. He was fine. But he wouldn't eat for me. And then after a while of, I want to say it was like 5 weeks, he wouldn't eat for me. But he never showed any signs of respiratory. He didn't have mites. But it was just one day I went in there and I'm just like, you look real odd. And he was lethargic. So took him to the vet the next day. And he had like a low case of respiratory. Went ahead and got him treated for that, but it was the parasites, the internal parasites that was the issue. And
so was he wild caught?
Yeah, most definitely.
Okay.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Which again,
did you do a video on that one?
Yep.
Yeah, I think I've seen that.
Which again on their site they're advertised as captive bred.
Import. Oh, really? Okay.
So they're advertised as captive bred because I sent them an email. I went back and forth with them actually for a couple of weeks. Sent them screenshots of the website like it says captive bred, but why does it have parasites? So, but all of my new snakes, whether it's captive bred or not, they go straight to the vet as soon as I get them because after that they're going on quarantine. So I mean, even still now, people still comment on that video like, "Why would you get that snake? You should have sent it back." But the crazy part is, people don't realize that I literally brought this snake back from the brink of death to he's one of my prettiest snakes on my page, and he's about 2 years old now. And he's growing. He eats he does not miss a meal now. And the simple fact that I expected the snake to die. He made a full recovery and eats every week. So I feel like, I don't know, I feel like just people focus on the wrong things. But I mean, if you can prevent any disasters like that, Definitely. But that's also why I say do your research. I'm not going to say don't buy from them. I'll tell you to do your research on them. And if you don't like what you see, okay, then that's on you. But I'm not going to tell you what to do because at the end of the
Yeah.
day, just like I did, I had to learn my lesson, and it is what it is.
Yep. And speaking on that, Larry asked me to post what this is in the comments, and I did. Um, this is what I use, and this is what I feel like has worked for me as a preventative. Um, this is not, me saying go do this, but this is me saying I use this. Okay, so you may want to look into what is actually in this. You may want to try it on only one of your snakes and see how it reacts versus, doing it in all of your enclosures. Now, I have told a great handful of people about this, and I've never had anybody come back to me and say that they had any issues. So I feel confident in it when I recommend it to other people, and when I don't feel confident in procedures, I will kind of keep my mouth shut on that type of stuff and just do what I do, and not say that this is what I do in hopes that no one goes out there and tries it and maybe doesn't do it exactly how I do it and does something wrong. Let me catch up on some comments here. I think we got a question for you.
Before you do
go ahead,
that, one more thing. So to the guy that was asking about the mites, one thing I
Yeah.
left out is if you have other snakes and they don't have mites, clean all of their tubs and their
Yep.
enclosures as well because you don't want to spread and keep that other snake away from everybody.
Yep.
If you have other reptiles and you know they don't have mites, handle them first before. So if you go in there tomorrow and have to do something, clean their cages first before dealing with that snake that has the mites. That way you're not spreading mites to your other reptiles. But no matter what, whatever snake or snakes have mites, keep them separate. But personally, me, if I have one snake that has mites, I'm treating everybody like they have mites, and everybody's getting that full treatment.
Yeah. Larry says he uses ivermectin as well and was just curious on the dosage on ball pythons versus boas. Wanted to make sure it's the same. I have a boa coming tonight and I'm going to treat it for mites, even if it doesn't have them visible. I don't know if you do this, but I do. Whenever I get a new snake in quarantine, I automatically treat it with ivermectin. Now, Larry, ivermectin is only to be used on snakes over 200 grams and is not to be used on a snake that is in shed or just got out of shed. It is a chemical, and when a snake sheds, the skin is skin is very sensitive. So you don't want to use it if it is just shed within the past 48 to 72 hours, I think. And then if it's in shed, then you're not supposed to use it as well. And then under 200 grams is the cutoff for babies. Other than that, you have to go a different route. There's an all natural, man, I can't think of the name of that one. You know what I'm talking about? It's like in a brown bottle, spray bottle. It's all natural.
You're talking about natural chemistry, I believe.
Yeah,
It's like
I think.
natural chemistry mite spray. I've used that actually. The reptile store I worked at actually
Did that work?
sold it. It was cool. I just felt like it was more natural, which was cool because you can spray it on the reptile and rub it in. You don't have to worry about anything. But I felt like it wasn't as potent as it needed to be. That's why I like Nyx.
Right.
I do like just a little stripe down the spine, and any visible mites I see, I'll take like a wet paper towel and just kind of go down
Yeah.
the back and pull them off, and then I'll put the Nyx on, and that's about it.
Yeah. And as far as dosage on that, Larry, it's you make your bottle with the ivermectin. You have there's a bottle of the concentrate ivermectin, and I believe it's 25 mils. It's the top line. That does 32-ounce bottle. You pour that into your bottle, fill the rest of the way up with water, 6 or 7 drops of Blue Dawn dish soap. Blue Dawn, not Blue Dollar Tree, Family Dollar soap. Blue Dawn dish soap. I'm saying that specifically because that is what I do, and that is the only thing that I'll do, and that is what has worked for me. And if I'm recommending it to you, it's specifics mean everything, So even down to the way that you do it, and the treatment is given on day 1. You spread the entire snake down from the eyes, head down, rub around the top of the head. And underneath the chin, and then you spray the rest of the body. You put it in the tub on paper towels, no water for 3 days. On day 3, you give them the water back. You don't spray them again until day 7, when you take the water back out, spray them again. And on day 10, you will be mite free. And I've never had a mite survive that treatment. Not ever, ever. Larry says that he has gnats bad. Back to what Dré said, you have to stay on top of cleaning. If you have a poop that has been rolled underneath the substrate, that will create gnats. If you have, urates, if you have, there's bugs that feast on the snake sheds, and husbandry and cleaning is everything when it comes to having a happy and healthy reptile room. So I would try to do those things, because unfortunately it's something that you have going on in there. They're not just like hanging out, having a good time there because they just can be.
The environment's perfect for them.
Yeah.
And the heat makes it great. If they got heat, water, something to eat, they'll have a hell of a time.
Yeah. Let's see here. GP says he uses Frontline spray, and the blue and white bottle works great. I've got a buddy that uses that, and he swears by it. I've never used it. I'm kind of one of those people, it's like if it's not broke, don't fix it. Within my realm of how I like to do things, I definitely will adapt and do things differently, as is anybody who is in this community. And kind of boils down to what the purpose of this podcast is to always strive to be better. The different people who come on here will have different views and different ways of doing things. And hopefully you can take that and put it with last week's and then put it with next week's and kind of be like, okay, I'm doing this little, collaborative thinking. And both of them said that, this is how they do it. Maybe that's how I should try that one time versus the way that I've been doing it. And if it, it happens to help you, that is the goal, and that is great. If it doesn't, then you're not out anything. You know what I mean? So, Mike Ram said Green Dawn. No, Blue Dawn dish soap. April Prather says, how long do you quarantine a new pickup? Good question, April.
Me personally, my go-to is a mandatory 60 days. Mandatory 60. There has been some cases where I'll let them go in like 50, 45 or 50. But I mean, that's granted. They shed for me. They're eating. There's no health issues. And for that to happen, when I take them to the vet, there can't be any issues. If you had any issue wrong with you, or if they felt like they needed to give you anything extra just because they were scared of something, automatic 60. The longer, the better. Especially with me, I bring home baby snakes. I mean, they're not going anywhere. Even if I was a breeder, it's going to be some time before they can be thrown into any project. So I'd rather protect my investment that way. So spend the time to let them be healthy. That way you can catch it because they're on paper towel and there's not as much in there for them to cover it up with. And you just know that, you're checking on them every day. And you can literally look at just them without all the extra stuff in the enclosure. So for me, 60 days, granted, if nothing is wrong, 45 to 50, but again, that's just me. Some people do 30, some people do 15. That's one of those things where it's, again, personal preference. I highly recommend at least 30 to 60, because usually if something is wrong, you're going to definitely see it within that first 30 days. And then usually that last 30 is to make sure that it clears up if is anything wrong. There was one animal, it was the white lip actually. I kept him quarantined for 90. After the vet, I kept him in quarantine for 90 days. And then he finally bounced back. And that was even after he was off the medication for like 2 weeks, but I wanted him on like a regular schedule of eating and just being in around me. So he's on quarantine for 90 days, but 60 for sure. I'm a pick and choose. I'll admit that. Most always 30 days at minimum, sometimes 60. And unfortunately, that boils down to who I get it from. Locally, I typically tend to do 60 days, just because I don't. It's hard for me to just say,
generalize that, you know, if you're local to me, then you don't know what you're doing. I'm not saying that, but when I see you know, previous history of some questionable things, I may do business with you. And if I okay the transaction and I get the animal, that is completely on me. But I also, on my end, you know, may do a 60 or 90-day quarantine just to make sure. Because let's you know, what is 2 to 3 months to be safe versus fighting a deadly virus or even a, you know, a serious infection in multiple snakes compared. I mean, that's nothing. You know,
It's not
take your
worth
time
the
with it.
money. It's not worth the
Yeah,
money you spend on them, especially with. I know for me, you know, I like a lot of the, you know, some of the more extravagant snakes, I guess you could call it.
yeah. You got
A lot of
designer
my
taste,
snakes,
bro. You
yeah,
got designer taste.
a lot of my snakes, you know, cost at least 600 to 700. You know, my red
Yeah,
tail was 850 by herself.
yeah,
So just like I understand you're in a rush, you want to get them, you know, in that enclosure look display, but is
yeah,
it really worth, you know, the money that you spent? And even then, I'm with you. Whether it, I don't care if you are the most top of the line breeder in the world. Prior to me, I don't know where that animal's been.
yep,
So whether you had 3 or 4 other people looking at this animal, and let's say we're at an expo, 4 or 5 people walk by this table, they all want to hold it, they all touch it,
yep,
and then we're
yep,
in the pandemic right now,
yep,
so you don't know where, you know, people have been. You don't know if, honestly, unfortunately, you don't know if people are washing their hands properly. Um,
yeah,
so it's not just mites we're looking out for. It's also just common germs you don't want to get. We already have to wash our hands anyway when we're dealing with our animals. I
yep.
keep a big bottle of sanitizer in my room. If I'm taking out a different animal, I sanitize in between. And
I got
I
like
think,
3 of these mugs everywhere. Every time
I think,
somebody come here, can I touch it? Sanitize. You can touch it.
I think people don't. A lot of people don't realize how much actually goes into reptile keeping.
Yeah,
And I'll be honest, you know, with me, I didn't realize a lot of it either, but that's why you learn. So it's not just about, you know, just the snakes or anything. It's literally about the work that you put into the snakes. That's the really the most important part. And
yeah,
like you stated before, the cleanliness on top of it. So if you just let people come in your reptile room and they just touching on your snakes, you're bound to
yeah,
get germs. It's like you move into your house. I need you to take your shoes off. You don't want
yeah,
them germs traveling to your house.
yeah,
So it's the same thing, but I think it's important and people should keep that in mind, especially when keeping multiple animals. It's certain things I don't do. Like if you, I don't have my reptiles in the kitchen. And that's
yeah,
no shade to anybody. I see a lot of people that do it. Me personally, I just feel like that's not something that I want to do, not where I eat at.
yeah,
A lot of us have kids. I don't want my reptiles around any common areas where I'm actually lounging or I know my daughter is going to be at. You know,
yeah,
she's 1. So it's just like, I feel like if there are any germs, they need to be contained in that reptile room because at least I can go to that source, clean it, and do whatever I need to. But if you start spreading them all around the house, you know,
yeah,
then you got a whole heck of a different problem.
yeah. Yeah, I agree with you, man. I'm definitely I'm not like a germaphobe or OCD, but I'm definitely picky about
Right.
where, which I've got my wife to definitely discipline me on what, you know, where I can and can't take the reptiles throughout the house. But you got to be on top of that type of stuff if you want, like you said, if you want to be able to isolate the probability, you know, stuff like salmonella, or which, you know, I know people talk about that a lot, but I I think it's a lot harder to get it than you actually literally have to put poop in your mouth. Like you have to touch the
Listen,
poop and it,
I've seen people kissing their reptiles and they don't catch salmonella.
yeah, yeah,
So I mean, I agree. You should be
yeah,
washing your hands and clean. Don't get me wrong. I love my animals, but there's just certain things that I don't want to do. I don't kiss my dog.
yeah,
So
no,
I'm gonna, you know, do the same. I follow suit. There's just certain things that I don't
yeah,
allow because that's just my way of controlling the situation and preventing
yeah,
something from happening.
yeah,
Just like, you know, but I don't want my dog to go outside without flea and tick medicine because then,
yeah,
just like with snake bites, he brings it
yeah,
back in.
yeah.
Fleas and ticks, that's a lot worse than mites, in my opinion.
It's funny you had brought up the shoe thing, man, because when I was a kid, I always think that was the stupidest rule ever. I used to hate, I'm hitting the door, I'm running in, and then my mom, take them shoes off, boy. And I'm like, man, I
Oh
can't
yeah,
wait till I get a house. I'm
it makes
step all
sense.
over my couch and everything, you know. And then here I am with my own house, and I'm like, oh, as soon as I walk in with my boots, where's my
Yes,
flip flops at? Let me switch
I
to my
was
house
yep.
shoes.
Look,
You
I
know?
got on my Nike flip surf right now, and it's
Yeah,
the same way.
yeah,
Like, it's not that I didn't understand it. I just thought it was more so annoying. Like, I'm like, you mean to tell me if I forget my keys or I gotta run in the house real quick, I gotta take them off and then come back
yeah.
and put them on. But now I, with a toddler crawling
Yep.
around, she like to pick up stuff and try to. Now I'm just
Everything in
like,
the mouth.
okay,
Everything.
exactly.
Let me see
It's to
something,
the
man. Put it
point
in my
where she
mouth.
would literally, it's to the point where she would literally just try to eat the floor, and I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah, yeah. It
So I'm
tastes
just like,
good,
okay,
Dad.
it makes sense. Oh yeah.
So Mike Bramlett says, do you take them to a regular vet?
Yes, I have a specific vet all of my reptiles go to. My dogs and my reptiles see two different vets. My tortoise, my white lip, my big boa, they have all been to this vet. They're the most recent ones to go. That was all last year, early last year. Um, and then I had a couple of checkups earlier this year, but because of COVID, it was just kind of like a well visit. So we did like camera. We just did like a little camera checkup. Basically, I didn't feel they were they were sick or unhealthy. They just looked
Yeah.
at them on camera. The bill was a lot cheaper, so I'm grateful for that. But yes, I do see a regular vet. Me personally, if you take your dog to the vet, why not take your reptiles to the vet? I
Yeah.
take all of my pets to the vet. Obviously, not my fish. Something a little
Right.
different. But I mean, like again, if we're spending this type of money to keep this animal, we should not cheapen out on the enclosure, the health, or anything
Yeah.
like that. You gotta keep that same energy. And that goes without saying, get an animal that you can afford. Don't get it
Yeah.
because the actual animal is affordable. Get the affordable setup, make sure you can care for it long term. Like I said, you see, I got the Cayman tattooed on my arm. So, like I tell people,
That's
I'm
hype,
not
man.
getting away from this. I appreciate it. I'm not getting away from this. So I got a lot of people like, what are you gonna do when it gets bigger? What do you think I'm gonna do? I'm gonna build it a bigger enclosure and let it
Yeah.
grow and keep. I don't.
You grow, we grow. We grow together.
A lot of my animals are gonna. I got a berm.
Yeah,
My
he's
red tail,
beautiful,
she's
man.
gonna get big. Yeah, he's a little a hole. And even then, as I expand, there's still a couple animals that I want to get, to add to my collection because I do. My end result is I would love to open up a reptile zoo.
Okay.
So I want to expand. Have obviously everybody likes those big animals, and that's kind of where I'm at. I like big everything, big dogs, big animals, whatever. Um, I like my snakes huge. Um,
Yeah.
I don't have a retic. It might be a little too huge for me. And a lot of people are like, well, you have a berm. Yes, but berms don't get as huge as retics. They're huge, but not as.
Yeah.
I've seen some huge retics, and I've seen some huge berms. But for me personally, I still feel like a berm is more manageable for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, man. And I don't know. I'm still fairly fresh on both of them to be able to say
Mhm.
a valid opinion on how I feel about each one of them. I've got two males. One is a male hypogranate berm,
Ooh,
and then I have a male amelanistic
nice.
retic.
Okay. Okay.
And I had originally got the berm, and then I got a granite female. She looked similar to your boy.
Mhm.
And I was like, yes, I got a pair. I'm gonna breed them. She was unpredictable, man, and I walked by the enclosure, and boom, she hit it, And I was gonna deal with it, work through it because like you stated earlier, we need to stop getting animals and then just saying, oh nope, I can't deal with this one, and then get away with it. But I had a guy that's fairly close to me come by one day, and he was like, man, I'd love to have that berm, if you ever decided to let her go, blasey blasey. And I was like, nah, man, I'm not gonna do it. And he stayed after me on it, and pretty soon I gave in because I felt that it was more fair to be real with myself and know now rather than a year or two down the line that I wasn't going to breed them. And
Mhm.
my heart is with him, my hypogranate male. That's my goal berm. Like, last season, me breeding ball pythons,
Right.
my goal was like, I'm gonna get a hypogranate berm. And when I brought it up to my wife, I had it in my head. My wife had no idea, but I had it in my head. When I brought it up to my wife, the idea, I thought she was gonna say no, and she was like, okay. And I was like, shit, more for
and
market.
and with berms, especially the females, she was gonna take up a lot of room full size.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Real quick. And have to have a good proper enclosure because I can't have no escapees, like I
Not that
cannot.
big. You
No,
walk in there, you like, oh,
not
that
not
is
at
the
all.
worst.
I will get
That is
shut
the
down so
worst.
quick. So quick,
I
so
literally
quick.
just had one 2 weeks ago. My
Yeah.
blood python. He broke his door. He found a weak
Oh, I seen
spot.
that. I seen that.
Yeah,
I seen
it was
that.
on Facebook.
I seen that.
So all of my snakes are at my sister's in her basement. She
Yeah.
was kind enough to let me use her basement to house my snakes there while I get my apartment situation figured out. And I had just got home and she calls me. She was like, "Your big snake is out." So in my mind, as a snake keeper, big
Yeah.
snake is different for everybody. So I'm
Yeah.
thinking she's talking about Luther, my boa, the 6 foot.
Right.
And I was just
Right.
like, no, he got like an actual like combination, like padlock. There's no way he can get
Right.
out of that. So then she FaceTimed me, and Kato, my blood python, is sitting on top of his enclosure, like, "What's up?" And Kato, he's big. He's about 4 foot,
Yeah.
and it's for a blood that's pretty big. I call blood pythons just spicy ball pythons. That's really all they
Yeah.
are. A lot of people, they got a bad rap, and then they get huge. So I get
Yeah.
over there, and luckily, her apartment is like literally 5 minutes away from here, if that. I get over there, and he's literally trying to make a run for it in her storm drain. So I got over there just in time. Had to grab him. He actually had to sit in a holding tote for like 2 days. It's actually like a big, like 4 foot tote that I use to move my big boa. So he had
Right.
to sit in that for a couple of days while I actually had to basically his doors open, like you unlatch them and then they fall down and they just hang.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
what
Cabinet door
happened
style.
is yeah, so what happened is the latch, he found a weak spot and all he did was go up against it and push it,
Mm,
and he was able to get out. So I went to the store, got some of the Gorilla Glue maximum strength, and I super glued the crap out of it. And then
yeah.
once I put it on there, I super glued all over it, and then I taped it so he can't get out. And we haven't had any more, but
Yeah. I've
a,
had
a,
my
a loose
I've
snake
had
is
my
the worst.
Yeah, I've had my fair share of worried with the cabinet doors enough to where I got rid of all of them and now I only do sliding glass doors. I know both have their benefits, and some people
For
are
sure.
partial to one over the other, and it all boils down to personal preference. And I don't have, it's just not for me. That's my big boa. I've got two big boa girls, and one's a little over 7 foot, and one's right at
Mhm.
7 foot. Hypo, both BCIs or BIs, and the normal was eating one day, and she got on the side of her hide, and she was pushing. Boy, that glass was flexing. I was like, oh no. And it's the cabinet doors, and the hinges was like hanging on for dear life. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh God.
Yeah.
So Chess, Chess, right?
Yeah,
Chess
yeah, yeah. That's
Brown.
my guy. I talk to him all the
Yeah.
time.
So there's been a couple times
And I got the
that
ass.
he's been hollering at me about his
Yeah,
his his berm, and then he's like, man,
yeah,
I just messaged Dre, and he said that they like that. So we got brothers in the same clutch, and
yeah,
his
man.
has been a little demon. Now mine's had his bad days too. I've walked by. He's like, man, does yours ever just boom hit the glass? I was like, matter of fact, this morning when I walked in the shop, I just heard something and I looked and he was looking at me like I almost tagged you, almost got you. They do that. I don't know. Does yours do that? Just when you walk by, boom, just
Yeah,
hits the
so Chess is my guy, man. That's a good dude right there. He be
yeah,
having me
real good
cracking
dude.
up in the DMs on Instagram. Zeus, yes, Zeus definitely does that. But I think with me, since I've been around snakes so long, I just have the confidence to just grab my. Whether I get bit, I get bit. It is what it is. I've been bit so many times, so snake or not, I'm gonna be like, listen here, bro. What's the problem? And then he's one of the ones where like you grab him, he'll give you a little attitude, but once he's out of his tub, he's like, oh,
Yeah,
okay, cool, whatever. Because you notice, me personally, any snake that I'm not comfortable with does not go on my neck.
yeah,
Zeus, I can put on my neck. I don't have an issue. I don't have to worry about him striking on my. I'll literally just be talking. He'll do his thing. He actually acts more like a boa. He just wants to climb everywhere. So a lot of the
right.
times when I'm recording, I have to cut out a lot because he didn't got a hold of the. I keep my microphone on a boom stand right in front of the camera.
Yeah,
He didn't got a hold of it. He trying to just go all crazy. But when I walk by, he'll definitely strike at it. I mean, when I open that tub, there's been times literally I open that tub up, he will shoot out and try to bite me.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things when he's just like, oh, okay, it's not feeding day. Last time I went to go feed him, dude literally was this close to biting me in my face.
Yeah.
Mistake on my end.
Key moment, folks. He just said feeding response. That is not him saying that his berm is evil or has any type of intent of wanting to kill him or anything like that. He's literally saying, open it up. Oh, I'm gonna get some food. Oh, no food. You got me out, and then he's good. And that's how my berm is. That's how retics are. And it's one thing that I kind of pushed and push chess to maintain the thought that he doesn't really want to bite you. He wants food, or you're scaring the crap out of him. And that is the two things. And I kind of we go back and forth with messages on maybe the situation that he may have put him in. He didn't realize it may have been building up anticipation and him kind of just being stressed, like you said. And I just have to tell people to think about it like you would think about it if you were the snake. If I just came up to you while you was laying down and I just stood up and I was looking at you, and I'm hovering over you, look at me like, what? I will bop you in your nose,
Exactly,
you better get away from me, so that's kind of how you have to think about it. Just said, I swear, if mine strike at me one more time, I'm gonna bite his back.
But like I told him, right? But see, like I told him, because believe it or not, my blood python was he had his moments, but he wasn't as bad as what people still make blood pythons out to be. And there would be moments where I would literally, I literally had him for 2 months. I didn't touch him for 2 months. And one day I went to go actually handle him, and he was still like, nah, bro. So it got to the point where I would let him have his way, and I'm just like, bro, you giving him his way. So every time you do that, he's gonna keep doing that because he knows you're gonna walk away and leave him alone. So gloved up, took that snake hook, and I would sit on the floor with him until he got used to me. And then eventually I would start sitting him on my lap. Once I noticed he would start just slithering around on my legs, I wouldn't pick him up, but I would grab him by the end of his tail just to get him used to my hands, my touch. Every week we trying something new and we're advancing it to the point where we're desensitizing him to anything. I have a blood python and I can pet him on his head and I have no issues. I don't recommend that. It's not something I do at all, but I'm saying that's how tame, well, I don't like the word tame. That's how tolerable he is of me.
Yes. Now I want to touch on that. This is very important information right here to anybody who has a snake that they feel is aggressive or they feel like is a little bit nippy, or they want to have a better relationship with it. And if that is the case, then you have to let that animal know that they don't faze you. They literally are not going to change what is happening by biting you. If you were to go outside right now and grab a baby gardener snake, it's going to keep biting you. It's going to tag you for about 30, 45 seconds. And then it'll eventually stop because it's going to be like, well, you ain't eating me and I can't eat you. So I'm going to just chill right here. The same, that same principle applies with just about everything else snake wise. And in my opinion, and it all boils down to is you getting over the anticipation of the bite, because most ball pythons, smaller boas, I've not been bit by a big retic. I've not been bit by either one of my big girls, and I don't want to. But most regular sized snakes, especially ball pythons, don't hurt. But that anticipation of that hit will make you jump before you even get hit and realize that you have been bit. And unfortunately, you'll end up hurting yourself worse and the snake worse. The snake's teeth are angled back, so it's going to pull the hole open more, and you may pull teeth out of the snake. So it's kind of a thing where I tell people all the time, I was like, they're like, how does it feel? How's it feel? I was like, you just need to get bit. Just have someone bite you, and
it's mental.
I don't really like to tell people to get bit, but I'm like, once you do get bit, you're like, oh, it's not as bad as it was. Now that does not get you over the fear of being bit one time, but it lets you experience what you have been like so fearful of. it's just like people all the time. I'm sure you experience this in the workplace, and people are like, oh, I don't, you got, how many snakes you got? What? Yeah. And I can't imagine the looks that you get people hearing that you have a caiman. Like,
listen, full grown men with wives and family, and I just be like, come on, bro, like,
yeah,
what are you scared of? Like, and I mean it, like, and this is how I break it down to people. If you have a dog and you can be patient with that dog, you can train that dog, you can get that dog used to you. Why can't you do it with a snake? A dog can do far more damage than any snake can.
Yep. Mainstream says, what's going on, Mainstream? It said they have 3 babies that are in behavioral classes. Yeah, got to teach them young. Hatchlings are always really, really nippy for me. I like it that way because they tend to continue to feed good and
healthy ones.
Yeah. Mike says, when's the best time to handle them? Anytime after feeding. Go ahead. Answer this one.
I have like a process or a schedule. I have 12 snakes. They all have different feeding schedules. Some eat every 2 weeks. Some eat every 3 to 4, and then my big boy Luther eats about once a month. So, well, every 3 to 4. So for me, the big boy, if he gets decent size, he gets colossal rats. 1 colossal rat a month. The bigger the meal, the longer you should give them to digest their food. So if he's getting a colossal rat on Saturday, I'm probably not going to see him again until about Tuesday or Wednesday. Just because he needs time to digest. Not to mention, nobody wants a pissed off snake, but nobody wants a pissed off snake that's over 6 foot.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So now for some of my smaller snakes, my medium sized snakes, like my carpet python, my bluffin, they eat every 2 to 3 weeks. Usually I give everyone at least 48 hours. But sometimes meals are bigger than others, so I'll give them 3 days maybe, just to kind of let them really take it in, absorb. But also I know most of the time, like my carpet, my berm is disgusting. Usually like that 4th or 5th day, he's ready to poop, but with him, he like farts before he poops, so what's coming. The carpet python is usually every 3 days after she feeds, she's gonna poop as well. So I try to really give them just some time to digest. Because it's like us, you out to eat and you got somebody that want to play and do all, come on, let me relax. I'm eating, stop, chill. So it's the same thing. The only thing is we're not going to go biting people because you're probably going to go to jail and you're going to get some unwanted germs. That's disgusting. So usually at least 48 hours is usually what I do. Depending on how big the snake is and how big the meal is that they've taken. If you got like retics and you're feeding them rabbits, I would say personally you need to give them a little more time than that because it's a big meal. And in my experience, a lot of the bigger snakes, they get triggered and ticked off just a lot faster than some of these other snakes. I don't handle my snakes the day of feeding. Some people say they don't do before. I handle my snakes the day before. I've never had an issue. But the day of, up to 3 days after, is off limits for me. Anytime outside of that, I have no issues. So that's why my YouTube schedule is the way it is. Or if I know a feeding day is coming up, I'll record beforehand and just put it out when I need to.
Yeah. I'm the same way. I do 48 hours. I don't handle the day of feeding. Other than that, I'm good. I've only got 3 big boas, the Dermos boas and the 2 BCIs, and then 2 Dermos boas, and then I've got a smaller boa and the retic and the berm. All of those boas and the berm and the retic are on 2 weeks feeding schedules. I was on 1 week doing 1 week to 10 days on my berm. I sent Chess a picture like 2 weeks ago. And I was like, bro, I'm going to 2 weeks. He is literally doubled in size in no time. I thought I was going to like this, but he needs to slow down. So I changed his back to 2 weeks with the other girls. And now all of the bigger snakes are on 2 weeks. So I just do the ball pythons once a week, which I don't really handle my ball pythons a whole lot. And that's why I have the boas. That's why I have these, because I'm a breeder. This is a hobby, also a business, and I try to make it be very unaffected by my, gotta grab, gotta touch, let me take a picture. It's like earlier today I did a TikTok, and we're out of breeding season now. So, and that girl, I didn't breed her. So, I wasn't really worried about it, but I was kind of standing there and I was looking, I was like, which one can I do the video with?
That'd be me. I'd be like, who didn't eat? Who's in shed?
Yeah. So, all right. Well, we have been going for an hour, and we've touched on some of my questions, but I haven't asked you even the first question. But I love it, man, because you got some great answers and some good knowledge, and I knew this was going to be a good one. I've enjoyed myself, but let's get to the questions. And first one is what got you started in the reptile hobby?
Well, so I was a kid, and this is actually, I did a video, this is one of my first videos actually. I just told a story about, like, growing up, I was one of those outside kids, always in the backyard, looking for bugs, looking for what I could find, anything animal related. I'm there. And I remember, it was one Christmas, my parents it was me and my brother actually, and my parents had got us like this little container, and the lid had a magnifying glass on it, and it had like a net, and we would go out and catch different bugs. And it's funny, believe it or not, I actually started off with bugs before anything. And it's funny because actually in that stage, like when I was a kid, I was scared of reptiles. I was terrified.
Yeah.
But that was, again, I didn't know anything about them. I just knew it was a snake. Snakes can bite and they're fast. So I stayed away from them. And then, here in Ohio, there's not an abundance of, snakes. I mean, you see them now, but there's not an abundance of snakes. But I think it's just more so being outside. And then when I got my first reptile, which was an iguana, horrible idea. That is what kind of triggered me to want to learn more about these animals. Actually, under the Cayman tattoo is a scar from my pet iguana, from that tail. That's kind of what made me want to learn more about them, because there was so much I didn't know. That I felt like I could have used at that time, and it just kind of went downhill from there. And then got hired to work at the pet store, and it just over time just kept getting worse and worse.
That's awesome, man. That's kind of how I started into, man, just running outside catching stuff. I used to live in Hilton Head, South Carolina, and I would literally run to these ponds every afternoon and try to catch these little. They were 3.5 foot alligators, and I was Steve Irwin, man. I electrical taping their face, Now today, who I am, I hats off to someone like you who keeps the caiman. That's like one of the wildest things that I see. But I don't know, man. A year ago, I didn't think that I would have gotten the berm or the retic, although secretly I knew that I loved the hypogranite, and that if I brought it up one day and my wife said that I'd be on it. I definitely did not think that I would have a retic. That was just not in my wheelhouse, but went outside the box, and I'm happy that I did, because he has a great personality, a little bit of a wild child, but it's never bitten me, and it's a beautiful, beautiful snake. I wish I fed earlier today, or else I'd get him out and show him. But that's kind of the interesting thing about this hobby is, that you grow with your reptiles, and it's like you said about the scar on your arm with the iguana, which is insane to know that an iguana tail whip can literally scar you. A lot of people get those at expos, $25, and they're this big, and then 2 years later, they're 6 foot long. And
it's just like, I personally think they need to stop being sold in pet stores. $20, come on.
Yeah, for sure. So was that the start of you keeping reptiles? So you've been keeping them since that point, or
since the iguana? So since the iguana, that's what I got my first beardy.
How long's that been?
So the iguana I got at almost like 15. The beardy I got at 16. And then, next thing you know, I found out about reptile shows. So that's really what kind of made it take off, because I was like, I can get things for cheaper, and then I can get like some of the high quality stuff. Started going to more and more expos, and then you know, I mean, I found myself like, sneaking animals into the house, and then my mom would be like, "No more lizards." And then finally, I'm like, "Okay." She said I couldn't buy any more, but she didn't say I couldn't breed them. So you
Yeah.
start breeding them and got eggs, and then now there's money being made. So it just kind of kept going. So um, right when I was 16, that's really when it took off. My brother, the actual situation that made it all happen was my brother. I have a brother that's a year older than me. He came home with a leopard gecko. Now, me personally, you couldn't pay me to have a leopard gecko. They're
Yeah.
cool, but like I said, I like big animals, and leopard geckos, they're cool, but at the experience level I'm at, it's not something that I want.
Yeah.
And he came home with one, but I was fascinated by it. And the next thing you know, he got a Savannah monitor, and I'm just like, oh wow. So the store he was getting them from is the store we started working at, and everything just kind of built on top. And next thing I was like 11 beardies in. I was breeding, making good money, and then at the same time, I was breeding fish, and I was just making money and working. Breeding
Yeah.
beardies just, it was a lot of work. So I got out of it. I actually got out of reptiles for, I'm 28 now, so I had got out of reptiles at like 23, and then I picked back up a couple of years ago, and now I'm snakes and everything like that. So I couldn't have snakes living at home, so
Yeah.
and I moved out. So basically all the snakes that I have are snakes that are on my dream list or dream snakes. So
Yeah.
from the blood python even down to the scaleless, I got a
Texas rat
scaleless
snake.
Texas rat snake. The
Yeah.
Mexican black king snake, the red tail boa, pure red tail, common boa, the carpet. I have a ball python, so the green tree python, the emerald tree boa, a little bit of everything, and I like having a diverse collection.
Yeah.
Just because I feel like I don't mind having 50 of one snake, but if I can have different snakes that I enjoy, that's what I'm gonna do. I feel like it's more enjoyable for me, and they all come from different continents, different places. All of the
Yeah.
husbandry requirements are different, so it's really kind of like a testament to how someone can care for so many different animals that have so many different care requirements. And it also
Yeah.
keeps me on my toes. You have to be up
Yep.
on your research. Even now,
Absolutely.
I watch my YouTube videos and there's certain things I'm like, oh, why did I say that? Or I could have said it better. So I'm still
Yeah.
forever critiquing myself and keeping up with, the education. I just recently did a video about green tree pythons and carpet pythons, and I was talking about Morelia species in general, and someone got upset and corrected me because I mentioned Boland's pythons being in the Morelia family, when in actuality in 2014 they got reclassified as something else. So again, that's something that I'm like, okay, I need to double down on my research and basically keeping up on my research, making sure that I'm up to date with everything. I think people see certain people on platforms and they're not allowed to make mistakes, they're not allowed to be wrong, and that's again why I say never watch someone's YouTube video and expect them to be the golden standard for how you're supposed to treat your animal, because again, things are always changing. You never know what sources they're using. I'm not saying I'm just spewing bad information, but it was just an
Yeah.
example of how I researched Boland's python. However, it comes up Morelia, but when you go
Right.
to specific sites, it comes up as something else. So um, yeah, it's just it's a lot, but I really enjoy it.
Yeah, and nobody's perfect, so there's not a perfect human being. We all make mistakes. And it all boils down to growth. We it's a beautiful thing that you're able to notice growth in yourself, even when you don't really notice it,
Mm-hmm.
by going back and look at your videos and saying,
Right.
oh man, that is the epitome of how to get better, doing better, stuff like that. So one thing that's crazy is that me and GP have talked about this a couple times. Krishan, he doesn't watch his videos, which is amazing to me, because I feel like I don't know how he doesn't do that, because he gets better. I've
Mm-hmm.
seen him, even over the past year that I've been following him, I've seen him chip away at different milestones and different stuff that would make me think that he's critiquing himself, and that he's, but maybe he's just, replaying it in his head versus, actually
For sure.
watching himself, So what is your favorite all-time reptile to keep? Real quick, Chess, we'll see you later, man. Appreciate you stopping by.
Much love to you, bro.
What is your favorite all-time reptile that you've kept?
Blood python. I get a lot of people that are like, why? Well, I'm just like, listen, everybody has their niche. And I've always been fascinated with blood pythons. So people are probably gonna think I'm crazy. However, what made me fall in love with blood pythons is when I worked at this reptile shop or this pet store, I actually took a pretty decent bite from a blood python.
Yeah.
And it was just something that it was my favorite snake in the store, but that bite, something about that snake, I was just like, dang, I like you even more now. So I've always just been fascinated with them. And then also they're heavy body snakes without that monstrous size. You get that big snake experience without getting, too way out there. They don't need a crazy huge, 18-foot enclosure, you know what I'm saying? So I really like them. They're like a really low key type of snake. They don't really bother you. They kind of stay low key in the shadows. And they kind of do their own thing. So I really just I like how they move. They move like big worms. But I mean, now that you got all these crazy morphs and different colors and everything like that, and I feel like I like working with them only because there's not a lot of people that actually will work with them because of the reputation that they have. Like I have people that would rather work with 18-foot retics than deal with one blood python because they're so worried about them or they hurt. I'm just like, it's really not that bad. And again, like you said, when you keep so many animals, certain things are bound to happen. I've probably been bit probably by a snake probably like well over 80 to 100 times. My motley boa bane changing his water tagged me right on my wrist, and I'm just like, all right, whatever. Like, it happens.
Yeah. It's funny, which you have a large variety of species and boas that you keep. So rightfully so that you've been tagged more times than me. And at this point, I'm getting that you've definitely had snakes, different species of snakes longer than I ever stepped it. Because I didn't step out of ball pythons until this past year. So before a year or so ago, I had never been bit, and I've only been bit 4 times. And I tried. When I say I've been bit, now I've been like pushed to what I feel like. It's like if I don't get like teeth marks or like a little drop of blood or something, it's like they just like slap me. They punk slap me or something.
Some of them will do that. My big boa Luther. So when I moved him, as I expected, he was pissed off. So I did the little open mouth headbutt where he could have literally did some damage to my hand. But he literally struck, made contact. As soon as I felt his head, my eyes was like, oh, because it's 6 foot and his head is like, he's a friendly, placid snake. But again, these animals are to be respected, and when they're pissed off, it's not like a toddler. You can't go sit in the corner. No, it don't work like that. They want what they want. So as soon as I felt his head, I was like, fuck. But I looked down and he's cocked back in cockback position. And I was just like, oh, all right, we'll leave you alone. So I didn't have my snake hook. So I had to actually have him strike again. But he struck the other way. And luckily when he did that, I was able to just go ahead and lift him up real quick, put him in his enclosure. I'm the type of person, no matter what the bite is, I don't run from it, at least not for my animals. I don't mind being bit for my animals. Other people's animals, I don't know that animal like that, so I'm chill. But with my animals, I'm always gonna find a way to get everything done that I need to get done. The Cayman, every time I go to grab him, I just chalk that one up as an L because I already know what's about to happen.
Yeah,
but it's a part of the process, and that was a part of the research that I did. I'm in a Cayman Keeper group on Facebook, and there's not one person in that group that's like, I ain't been bit. Because if you got a Cayman and you say you ain't been bit, something don't sound right. They bite through gloves, whatever.
Yeah, I'm gonna come right back to the Cayman. I just want to touch real quick on the blood python, something that I was thinking about. But one thing I think that people throws them off of blood pythons is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but these guys will literally be this way and will turn and hit you like that, right?
Oh, yeah,
They're not like, you're not predicting them like a ball python, you know, like where you're sitting there and you're like, they're about ready to hit you. The couple of experiences that I've had with them, you know, one time we were bagging one up, and you know, it was going in the bag and came sideways and boom, you know, hit them.
So definitely the one snake, the only snake that I have that does not warn you that they are going to bite.
Yeah.
They'll hit. They're vocal sometimes. Kato, he picks and chooses. Sometimes he'll hiss. But other than that, he's never bit me. But when he was smaller, he would just look at me, and I'm thinking, I'm sitting there stroking the back of him. I'm thinking we cool, and bam, I'm like, oh, what happened? Like, you know, what was going on? The only other snake that's worse than him that'll just strike out of nowhere is Loki, my white-lipped python, which is why he got that name, because dude will betray you in a second. So I named him Loki. Marvel. Do whatever he want. You can be cool, and he betray you just like that.
I like that. I almost named my burn Loki. I named him Thanos. It kind of. I was thinking of, like, you know, it's the one thing I wanted to collect, right? And it just came to mind, Thanos, you know, with the gauntlet, you know. The caiman, do they ever tame down at all? Like, I mean, is there a?
They do. And mine personally, not yet, but like I said, mine is still a little guy. The lizards are here with me. They're actually in the room that I'm sleeping in. So I see them every day. They do calm down, but they're one of the animals where it takes a lot. Like, you have to literally stay on them a lot of time, only because of the sheer damage that they can do. I mean, they're crocodilians, although they're dwarfs. Right. A lot of people think dwarf caiman. Oh, cool, it's going to stay small. A dwarf caiman can still reach 6 foot. So Cuvier's dwarf caiman is the world's smallest crocodilian, which is not what I have. I have the smooth front, which is the second smallest.
You say smooth front?
Mm-hmm. Smooth front, or Schneider's dwarf caiman. So Cuvier's dwarf caiman, which is Paleosutris palpebrosus, and then smooth front, which is Paleosutris trigonatus. So that's what I have. Those guys get about 6 foot. So we're talking like water monitor size.
Right.
So that's dwarf. It's dwarf compared to an actual crocodile.
Right.
But it can still do some damage. So you need to make sure that you do what you're supposed to. So what I do is as babies, the bites don't hurt as bad as you think. And I don't mind being bit by the caiman because they don't bite down. They'll bite and let go. Versus the tegu, they got that jaw pressure. That shit hurts. hurts. And then they got those little needle-like teeth, and then biting down. So the caiman, I'll free handle.
Yeah.
I'll use rubber gloves because usually when I'm handling him, I'm doing something in his tank or I'm feeding him, whether it be shrimp, raw meat, mouse, or whatever. But for the most part, I'll let him sit in my hand or on my lap, and he'll calm down. And I'll just kind of do like a couple of desensitizing things. I'll take a toothbrush and just rub it on his head, or you just kind of get him used to being touched in certain places. And eventually he does calm down, but it's like every time I take him out, I have to reset. I just try to keep doing that with him. So by the time he does get that size, he's not super crazy, because I got him as a hatchling, so he was about this big, and he's grown a little bit. He's about this big now. He's about a year now, so he definitely put on some size, and I'm just kind of taking my time with him. Again, once I move, I can really do what I want, because before I would put him on the floor and just like let him sit on my lap, and I would just sit there, especially if it's the end of the night and I'm done cleaning and I know I'm about to sit on my phone and upload pictures or scroll or do something. I would just sit on my lap and just let him hang out. He would fall asleep and just kind of hang out. But I mean, other than that, it's not as crazy as most people make it seem. No, I'm not saying go out and get a crocodilian by any means. Not what I'm saying. But when you do your research and you're prepared to take on an animal like that, you'll begin to learn that it's an animal that should be taken serious.
Yeah.
But there's worse things that can happen, So
for sure. And that is definitely key. You should definitely do your research. And if you didn't know and you're watching this from the local Kentucky group or you're local to me in Kentucky, crocodilians are illegal here. Ohio has some pretty decent laws when it comes to the exotics that you all can keep. I know like we can't have false water cobras. I was just talking to Chess about this. He's wanting to get one of those.
So
Can y'all have
yeah.
false water cobras?
So we can literally have, we can pretty much have anything. The
Anything?
only stipulations are with crocodilians, it can only be dwarf caiman. So anything
Okay.
outside of that, alligators, now crocodiles, morlets, anything like that, we cannot have. Unless you're like a
Okay.
zoo or something and you have the permits, obviously.
Yeah.
With snakes, anything venomous, you have to have a permit.
Yeah.
And then you have to have liability insurance to keep it. So
Okay.
anything mildly venomous, we don't have to have a permit for. The beaded lizard, surprisingly, you don't have to have a permit for. And then snakes that are 12 foot and bigger, you have to get your permit. So my
So
berm, once it's 12 foot, I have to get a permit. Won't let me get it now because he's not 12 foot. So with him being a male, he may even max out at like 10 and a half to 11 foot. So I may not even need that permit, but I do plan on getting another snake. This snake probably gives me a run for my money out of all my snakes. I'm actually looking at an African rock python eventually.
oh man.
Um, right, but with me, to be honest, I can't get no crazier than the caiman and a beaded lizard. So I'm just like, it is what
Yeah.
it is. But yeah, the laws are decent out here. I don't know if you are too familiar with what happened out here some years ago with the Zanesville incident.
With the what
But
now?
so a city about an hour from me is Zanesville, Ohio. It's a
Uh-huh.
little small town. There was a guy who had basically lions, tigers. Hate to be cliche, but he literally had lions, tigers, bears. He had monkeys. He had all types of wild animals, and he was doing some illegal stuff. So he decided to let all of the animals go. So we were
Like
basically
just
like on lock,
loose?
literally in the
Oh
city.
wow.
So we were kind of like on lockdown for like a couple of weeks. And Jack Hanna got involved, and they had to catch, and basically they killed majority of the animals. Some of them went to the zoo. He ends up killing himself, and then so basically after that happened, they made this law. That happened. They made the law in 2014, so it's been in effect since then. So that's back when that happened. I'm in a suburb. It's called Gahanna, Ohio.
Yeah.
Literally 20 minutes down the road, the neighbors had tigers. So they made that now. You cannot have them in city. You can't have them at all anymore. But
Yeah.
initially, it was like by county, and then it was like you can't have them in city limits, and now it's you can't have them at all. So the
Yeah.
laws here are pretty relaxed, I guess. But I will say it does kind of worry me with all the laws that they're trying to pass across the United States. With the tegus and what they did
Yeah.
in Florida, and now they're going after South Carolina and New York, and it's crazy.
Man, I'm a big advocate of like freedom. You do what you want to do, but I was also raised and am a big advocate of you handle your business. So when that comes to the responsibility of the animal or the care and that all it goes hand in hand, and it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't end just because you felt like it. Now, there may come a time, even in my hobby keeping or my reptile keeping, where I do have to get rid of everything. Stuff does happen, but there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. And unfortunately, there's a select few that will ruin it for the ones out here trying to do it, correctly. So
I
it's
will never, yeah, I will never understand people letting their animals go.
yeah,
Um, that is the stupidest thing, and that's why I promote so hard on educate yourself. Don't get an animal to get rid of it. Don't release your animals. Because there's certain animals here like red ear sliders. We have here. We have black rat snakes. We have garter snakes. We have eastern box turtles. We have here. Those are all native here. And it's just crazy how many people like, well, it's native here, so it's fine, and they'll let it go. And I'm just like, it may be native here, but that is a captive animal. Why would you do that?
yeah,
So
yeah. So roughly, not say I say that loosely. You're the first person I've had on the show that isn't somewhat strictly a ball python breeder or a breeder in general. And I say that roughly because I sometimes don't know exactly how many snakes I have, because I have hatchlings fluctuating.
Right.
Some hatching, some leaving, some more, it fluctuates. But how many reptiles do you keep?
15.
15.
Mm-hmm.
And you said the caiman's probably the most exotic one that you have.
The caiman and the beaded lizard. The beaded
The beaded
lizard.
lizard, yeah.
There's only like a handful of people who actually here I know have dealt with them. But I think the caiman and the beaded lizard are probably the craziest. Whether you watch TV or then everybody's seen a big snake, but venomous lizards and crocodilians aren't very common at all.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a guy here back early summer. He had an
Mm-hmm.
alligator in his house. You might have, I don't know if you all catch too much Kentucky news, but I guess he let it go or something like that. The Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife retrieved it or something or another, but it was a pretty nice sized alligator, which is wild.
I don't
Get out.
get it.
I don't either, man. What are some common husbandry or keeping practices that you come across as, incorrect, or things that you see people may do wrong that, you see and you could, have some advice with helping them with that?
Me personally, I've already gotten like backlash for speaking out about it on my Instagram, but it's my opinion. But I would probably say one of the biggest ones is moving your snakes to feed. Me personally, there's not a reason for that. And of course, the thinking is, well, if you feed them in their enclosure, they're going to be defensive, and that's not the case. All 12 of my snakes eat in their enclosure. The only way that'll happen is if you're only going to their enclosure to feed them. If you're not handling them outside of days, then that's going to be a problem. So moving to feed,
it's
the whole
unnecessary.
snake rack debate.
It's unnecessary.
The whole snake rack debate. Me personally, I plan to move. I have a snake rack that I built myself. That's what some of my smaller snakes are in. Me personally, I think they're great for establishing, smaller and newer animals. But me personally, I want to move all of my animals to PVC, but I'm not going to sit here and tell someone you can't do that. If it's working and it's not putting stress on the animal, then that's fine. So again, that goes back to what I said, at the beginning of our conversation. There's multiple ways to achieve the same goal. So I understand the whole animals need this and animals need that. And I'm a firm believer in that. But again, there's nothing that I can do for someone that wants to do it this way and it's working for them and it's successful. Their animals are healthy, they're eating, they're thriving. There's nothing that I can, I'm not going to talk down on someone because they do things differently than I do. Now, if you're keeping your animals in a rack and your rack is completely disgusting and your snakes are too big for that rack and, you have issues, then yes, that's an issue. But if everything is well and everything is thriving like it's supposed to, who am I to speak out on somebody because that's how they want to do it? That's how they want to do it, and I'm fine with that. They're fine with that. It's their investment. It's their business. I got my own animals to worry about. So I think those are probably the two biggest. That and probably loose substrate.
Like sand.
Yeah. I think that's going to be one of those age-old debates that'll never die. Me personally, so when I was breeding bearded dragons, I kept everybody on newspaper because it was easier for me to clean up. But that was before the whole educational piece took over, and now just kind of diving deeper into the education and really just like researching more and seeing what can be done from a captive standpoint. Loose substrate it's not bad as long as it's done right. Obviously, we know the ones to stay away from: calcium sand, anything that's gonna build up and cause impaction is something you want to stay away from. But anything else that's loose can be passed through. These are things that I argue with people about daily on Instagram, or they'll jump in my comments on YouTube, and sometimes I'm just like, it's not even worth arguing. People are gonna say how they feel. People are gonna do how they do, and I mean, if you feel different, that's fine. But that's just me. That's my opinion. But those are probably my top three. But I think the biggest one that I feel like I see the most is kind of coming back and it's kind of starting to annoy me is people moving their snakes to feed, and it's always big snakes. People got these huge, 12-foot snakes, and they're giving them a rabbit on their living room floor, and I'm just like, for what? Why? Like, I mean, if it works for you, okay, cool, but you gotta put that snake back. Well, I've never had a snake regurgitate. Okay, but just because it's not regurgitating doesn't mean it's not stressed.
Yeah, I don't know, man. There's one guy, and I'm sure you've seen him. He feeds his berms in the hallway all the time.
Instagram.
Yep. Thousands of followers.
I think I know who you're talking about. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I think
he goes to Jay's place all the time. And it's just for likes, man. And it's unfortunate because he's gonna have people who are following him to be like, well, he got 49,000 followers. I just want 5,000. If I feed my berm in the hallway, and ultimately somebody gets bid, or because everybody's
not done the right way.
Yeah,
a lot of people don't understand. Go ahead, my bad.
Yeah, no, you're good. It's unnecessary, and getting bit is not even the biggest thing about it. The biggest problem is like you said, that animal after it digests has to be put back in its enclosure. Because I don't care what nobody says, that no berm needs to just be free roaming in the house. Like that just don't need to be happening.
No.
We can debate a bunch of things, but that just I don't see, unless you got that mug its own room where it's climate
walk-in enclosure.
Yeah, it's a walk-in room enclosure. That's different. So you literally have to coax that animal back into its enclosure, just like you said. They're stuff. They just ate Thanksgiving dinner. Nobody wants to be touched and messed with after that. So it's not. I talked about this before, but it's not that it's wrong. It is unnecessary. It doesn't make sense. And people kill me with that. If I feed them inside my enclosure, every time I come in, they're gonna think that I'm trying that I got food, and they're gonna bite me. That's retarded, because if you take them out to feed them, why wouldn't they think that every time you take them out that they're getting food? What? It literally
you still gotta go pick them up and put them back.
Yeah, so it makes zero logic. I don't get it.
Unnecessary extra step, but yes, I think I do know who you're talking about. I actually got into a little debate with someone because they sent me a video, and I was just like, yeah, I'm not a fan of the content. And they were like, well, how can you judge someone based off of their content? I was like, I'm not judging him. I don't know him as a person. I'm sure he may be a cool person. I was like, I don't know him, but based off of what I see, I don't necessarily agree with it. So I'm not bashing him, but I'm cool. So it just went way left, and they were, well, I don't think that's fair. You're judging them. And I'm just like, I'm not judging anybody. I'm literally looking at something and telling you my thoughts on it, like you asked. But again, it's everybody's going to feel how they feel about it. Everybody's going to have something to say about anything. And regardless of how you do things, how I do things, there's going to be somebody out there that finds a reason not to like you, me. They may not even know you or me. Like I said, I get plenty of people that comment on my YouTube and you don't know what you're talking about and blah, blah, blah. Okay, whatever. Thanks for the view. Keep it moving.
Yeah.
I'm not here to argue with everybody. And 9 times out of 10, it's usually like a little kid with 2 ball pythons that think they know everything. And it's just like, I'm not here to argue with you about my emerald tree boa and you got your first cinnamon ball python. Right? It's not going to work.
They went through 2 seasons of go harping and now they're pro. It's unfortunate that people can't have a different view from you and think that I don't know. My thing with him is like, it's like kudos to you for gaining a good following, and other people like this for gaining a good following, but I hate when people like lose their self in that. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. I love when something does good. It's like earlier today, I did a TikTok video and it's doing better than any TikTok video I've ever made. I've had that video or TikTok idea in my head for months and just hadn't done it. Just because I get like that and I start to overanalyze myself,
Yeah, for sure.
and wish that I had done it earlier because it's doing so well. But at the same time, I don't ever want to forget, that people ultimately may want to be like me and do what I'm doing. And if I care, about general people and how, someone could interpret what I'm doing and, do it themselves, then I want to uphold a good standard, and good ethics and, this and that. And that is why there are people who, swear by me. And there are a lot of people who swear by you. It's like the whole berm situation with Chess, it was, he messaged me. Then he'd get my input. He'd message you. He might have been messaging 2 or 3 other people. I don't know. But he was, saying, oh, I'm going to talk to Dré. He said this. And then he was showing me, conversations that you all had. And he said the same thing as you, Ramel. So, it's nice when you're able to say, I believe in what I'm doing with everything that I believe in, and know that it's not for any other intent than my love for the reptiles or my love for making YouTube videos or doing this or doing that, whatever the case may be. Now, with that being said, yes, I am a breeder, but at the end of the day, yes, I do get sad whenever I hatch out a clutch that has a deformity, or that I lose a baby, or whatever the case may be, because I'm not only in it for the money. If there is a time where I'll be able to actually get in the green, but it's I don't know. I hate when people are just all about the clout, man.
For sure.
I had
You
some
you
follow
bring in the
that.
views with no education, and
Yeah.
these are usually the people that they get that boost. Everybody wants to follow them, and it's cool. Or,
Yeah.
oh, I went out and they went out and bought 4 or 5 retics, and then they want to keep them in the smallest enclosure, and it's just like, what are you doing? So that's
Yeah.
why everything that I do, I bring education behind it, whether you agree or don't agree. You cannot say that I'm just getting just to get stuff. And I've already had people say that about me, and I'm just like, before I started my YouTube, I had a long talk with myself. At the end of
Yeah.
the day, people are going to feel how they feel about you. And
Yep.
to be honest, I'm a very humble person, but I had to get in a very I don't give a fuck mood,
Mm-hmm.
because you can literally say or do something that someone doesn't agree with, or their friend doesn't like you, so they tell them that I'm not here to please people. I'm here to share what info I got.
Yeah.
You watch it, you watch it. If you don't, you don't. Keep it moving. Everybody have a good day. I don't get hung up on stuff like
Yeah.
that. So,
And what's
um,
crazy is even people pleasers get shit talked about. You can't
right,
win with it doesn't matter which way you go. So you might as well be you and do you, and that be that. Because at least at the end of the day, you can sleep well at night knowing that
right.
you were you, and that was based off what you wanted to do. And I applaud you for that. I love dope content. I love crisp, clean videos. And if you all have not heard of Dré before, or DWxotics, you definitely need to go check out his YouTube channel. Check out his Instagram. He has some heat quality content, some educational videos that is A1 crisp content. I'm telling you, you guys
Appreciate
will
that,
not be
man.
disappointed. Definitely need to go check him out. Subscribe to the channel, DWxotics. Now, Scotty has a question here. I don't know if you know much about this or have dealt with this, but he said, what would cause a snake to be born with no eyes? And I can touch on
Ooh.
this if you've
Yeah,
never dealt
I'm
with
not
it.
a breeder, so I don't know. The only thing that I will say, that I know could affect it is going to be something with the genetics or possibly incubation. But
Yeah.
that's all I can say about that.
Yeah. So it's shitty, but ultimately it boils down to genetics and incubation, just like Dre said. My clutch, I have a clutch of albino and albino inchy ball pythons. There was 5 eggs. One I was cut dead. It was hatched dead. It had stopped developing maybe 2 or a week and a half prior to pip day, or the day that I seen one pip, and I ended up cutting the rest of the eggs. And then the other 4 have shark mouth and shark jaw. You've heard of this? Shark jaw?
Vaguely.
So it's where, so this is the top jaw of the snake, and the bottom jaw where it would normally come together and close like this. It's born like this, where the bottom jaw is undeveloped.
Basically like a cleft lip.
Yeah, sort of. I had a black pastel to cinnamon clutch that I hatched, and I had one with a cleft lip. I got her eating just fine, and she's thriving and doing fine now. I'm a lot more worried about these because for her, it was just kind of hard for her to figure it out. For these, it's physically going to be a little bit harder to figure it out. I think for her, it was just kind of weird. Like, she flicks her tongue up through the cleft part, but her whole jaw's still there. There's just a little hole where her tongue flick out. These, literally, their bottom jaw is in further. So when you think about how a snake grabs their prey and then works their prey with their jaws, it is going to physically be harder for them. I've never dealt with it, but I can tell you I've done some research on it, and I think it's going to be hard. But this is the life of a breeder, and if you sign up for this shit, you better be ready to do it. So to answer your question, Scotty, most likely it is either genetic or an incubation fluctuation. And what happened with me, I can almost bet money, is there was I had a power outage for several hours at my house, and there was a fluctuation of temperature, and it was during a critical stage in development in the egg. And kind of like when you just walking up the steps and you miss one of them steps, and it sucks. But it does happen, and that is why it's important for us to be on our A game. And I will not deny that I was not on my A game by not having a generator. At this level that I'm at, I should have a generator. And it sucks that it took something like this happen for me. Now, I won't say that I knew before this I needed to have a generator. I did. But it's kind of one of those things where it's like, whew, I made it through the winter. I can get through breeding season, and then I can drop 600 on a generator, and then here, going in the next winter, I'm like, well, let's just see how long it takes, until I absolutely have to get a generator. That is just the human in me procrastinating, and I don't want that to happen anymore. So it's definitely going to be on the top of the list so that I don't have that happen, or at least a backup battery generator. They have what's called UPS, and they're backup battery generators. You're in a pretty cold part of the country as well. Do you have backup plans in case of power outages and stuff like that for the cold?
The apartment complex that I was at, actually, they had generators. Here at my parents' house, I don't have one. Usually, if it's cold, I don't have one, but I know my sister has one, so like I can borrow it. But I do plan on getting one. But it's not something that I've ever usually had to worry about, because I guess it's usually already been taken care of kind of for me, so it kind of makes it a little easier on me.
Yeah, for sure. So Scotty, I hope that answered your question there about the no eyes. And sometimes stuff just happens, man. We can't beat ourselves up about it. This is where it boils down to going back to knowing that you give your best, and that you're your values were kept, and you a lot of people make fun of me. They're always, well, it's not up to your standards, but I take it as compliments. Like it sometimes, like my buddy, he's always joking with me. He's like, "Well, it ain't no morphination or it ain't no Ramel or nothing, But it's a compliment to me because it's like, okay, well, I don't think that that's that high of a standard. I thought that I could do better, but I appreciate you saying that. This nice looking thing here is not as critiqued as I would critique it, or whatever the case may be. But that having that in your repertoire of doing your best will help you sleep better at night when stuff like this does happen. And now Scotty's a good buddy of mine, and I know he's a good guy. I know that he cares about his animals, he cares about his snakes. He's got a lot of good snakes, and there's no doubt in my mind that he would do what it takes to have successful clutches and do the right thing. Not speaking like I know everything that he does, but I know enough to speak a little bit on his integrity. So all right, so let's see here. What tools besides shameless plug DWxotics on YouTube or resources can you recommend to anyone wanting to expand their knowledge on reptile keeping or reptiles in general?
Me, I'm more of an article reader. I'll
I hate to read.
YouTube some things. You said what?
I hate to read. I hate it.
I just, because I feel like it goes so much more in depth, and it breaks everything down for you. And then also, like me personally, when I research for an animal, I'll start off on YouTube, see what people have to say about it. The only thing with YouTube is sometimes people will contradict each other, or they may have used a janky website or whatever the case may be. So from there, then I'll Google and I'll use a couple of sites that I use. I like reptile magazines. They're usually pretty good. They're the ones I usually read most of their articles. But a lot of it is usually it's usually done. It's like an article written by like a scientist or a biologist that actually worked with these animals to study them. I don't have any sites like written down, but that's usually kind of where my go-to is. I don't want to read I don't want to go to Reptile Rapture and read their care sheet. Don't get me wrong, care sheet may be helpful. That may be something I use to kind of compare, the research that I did or the information that I got to see if it's on or if it's off or, if it's close to it. But for the most part, most of the time it's articles. Research to me is compiled with, different methods, whether it be YouTube, talking to breeders or talking to keepers on Facebook, because that is very detrimental to getting these animals. Let's say you read a care sheet or you watch a YouTube video and they say, oh, you want a Burmese python. Burmese pythons are the kindest snakes ever. None of them ever attack. And then you talk to someone who keeps one and they're like, mine is fucking crazy. So it's just I feel like you have to do your research from the educational background, but you have to also do your research from the keeping background and see what the actual experience is like. I tell people all the time in my YouTube videos, if you have a certain animal or if you're thinking about getting a certain animal, do your research, do extensive research. You can ask me questions all day. I can tell you what my experience is. I get a lot of people, what's your experience with your green tree python? Most people cannot hold or even touch their green tree python. Chess, another one. His green tree python is not letting him get near it. I can hold my green tree python. With that being said, I also know the risk that come with holding a green tree python, so it's not something I do often. Green tree pythons have a prehensile tail, so it's very, very fragile. So it's not something that I do often. 9 times out of 10, if I'm taking my green tree python out, I made it to where the perches are removable, so I can just remove the entire perch, and I can hold them that way. So it just kind of comes with doing your research, checking multiple sites. Even now in our day and age, podcasts are really popular, so that's another great source added. But again, talking to keepers, whoever you're getting this animal from, ask them questions. Me personally, if you can't ask this breeder a question, you should not be buying from them because that just sounds sketchy. If they can sell to you but can't help you care
Yep.
for it or make sure that your investment is, well invested in, then don't buy from them. So for me, it's like multiple things thrown into, saying a box, and I just kind of open that box and just dive into all of it. And from there, with the experience of that animal, I'll take all the information, that I have or that I know and kind of implement my process because I may not like certain things that are in here, or if I can sub out something that's not necessarily necessary or something that is required, then I'll do it a different way. A lot of people don't really require. If you can read a snake article all day and they'll tell you snake UVB isn't required. But for me personally, I know the benefits of UVB. So that's just one of the benefits of doing your research. Is it required? No, it's not. But is your snake gonna benefit from it? Yes, of course. So if you're someone and you like to go above and beyond or you like to set that high standard, why not give the best if you are trying to provide the best care? And I feel like it's all going to start with that research. If you just Google Burmese python and read the first thing that you see and call it a day and go get one, you're going to be in for a rude awakening because that's 9 times out of 10 why people don't know that these snakes
Yeah.
are one of the top 5 contenders for the largest snakes in the world because they
Yeah.
get on there, oh, I just want it to stay small. Well, if I just feed it, let's keep it in a small enclosure. That's not how that works. How would you
Mm-hmm.
like it if someone fed you once a day and kept you in the crib that your parents put you in when you're a baby? It doesn't work like that. So
Yep.
that's why the research is important. And when it comes to research, you have to really break it down into lighting, husbandry, diet, substrate, um, temperament.
Mm-hmm.
And then also think ahead in the future. Is this an animal that I can afford in the future? If you want a Burmese python and because it's $200 and it can fit in a 20-gallon long or a 40 breeder now, but are you going to be able to provide for this animal when it's 10 to 12 foot long, eating rabbits once a month, and it needs a 10-foot enclosure, and you have to pull it out, and you need a tub to sit it in when you clean the enclosure? We all know that a lot of these tubs then got pretty expensive. We
Yeah.
we've given the Loctite tubs, the Tupperware tub business a lot of money, and
Yeah.
personally, you go to Home Depot or to Walmart or Target, and you're like, I'm looking for your Tupperware containers. They think you're trying to organize some stuff. And you're like, no,
Yeah.
I need to
Yeah.
put my snake in this. So it's just a lot of different factors that go into caring for your animal, and that's why it's important. And even now, I have these animals and I'm still doing research because, again, things change. Let's say, I got my blood python last year and everyone says, oh, they require a humidity of, 80 or so percent. But someone does research and they've been keeping it and they see that they actually can thrive just as well on 75%.
Yeah.
5% difference in humidity makes a huge difference. So,
Oh yeah.
for me, I keep mine the humidity right at like 76. So it's perfect. But also, a lot of people don't realize that snakes require different levels of humidity, different levels of, the different temperatures. Carpet python
Mm-hmm.
and green tree python are in the same family, but their
Mm-hmm.
requirements are still different. Carpet python is
Mm-hmm.
semi-arboreal versus a green tree python is mostly arboreal.
Yep.
Carpet python can stand it a little warmer. Green tree pythons don't like it that hot. They like it up to the low 80s. Blood
Yeah.
python is the same way. So it's really important that you are using trusted sites and really diving deep into the research. You go to one site, you read one thing, okay, cool. Read something else and compare the information and keep going and so forth. And then talk to the people who have these information, see what their experience is like. Again, ask questions to the breeder. If they have an issue with it, do not buy from them, and
Mm-hmm.
just be careful on what you read because there are some trusted sites out there where they kind of they're I feel like it's nitpicky. Certain things they want you to hone in on, and that can be the deciding factor on whether a person gets this snake or this lizard or not, because
Yeah.
it's something that was mentioned in an article or something that someone said, and they're like, no, because I don't have to worry about this. And it's me personally. Even after you do all of this research, the decision is still yours.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to maintain this animal throughout its entirety. So if
Yep.
you have a Burmese python, again, I'll just use that as an example, and the life expectancy of a Burmese python is 20 to 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
Your Burmese python dies in 3 years. It kind of make you evaluate yourself.
Yeah.
My Brazilian rainbow boa was
Yeah.
3 years old recently, and it passed this year. That to me will never sit right with me. I took it to the vet, but it was too old to get a necropsy done. But to
Yeah.
me, something in my mind is telling me I did something wrong. I was in the process of moving. She ate a
Yeah.
couple of days ago. She had water. She had her hide. I don't know what was wrong, but again, for me, knowing that snakes don't just die, no animal just dies,
Yeah.
especially if they're in perfect health. For me, in the back of my mind, even still now to this day, I lost her back in February, March. There was
Mm.
still something wrong that I did. So that's why even now, I still I spot clean weekly.
Yeah.
I spot clean daily. I'm sorry, and then I do full cage cleanings once every other month. So I change out the substrate, but
Yeah.
my animals get checked on daily. Even then, I have to build a new snake rack this weekend, but I'm swapping out the heat tape on my current snake rack because I just want to make sure everything is good.
Yeah.
That heat tape's been going for 3 years. There's nothing wrong with preventative care, and that's another
Yep.
great part of research. So when you have this many animals and you have the type of animals that we have, even if it is a garter snake, even if it's a ball python, if you're investing in it, you can't cheap out anywhere. To be honest,
Mhm.
there's nowhere where you can get cheap because at the end of the day, no matter how we look at it, it's a live being
Yeah.
that we have to take care of. So
Yep. Yeah.
research is important, man.
Yeah, for sure, man. 100%. You touched on a lot there. That was some great points. I don't even know where to start,
Yeah, man,
but
I get to rambling, man. You
no,
know.
no, 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 no. You're good, man. You're good. I love it. You definitely need to stay in your lane, folks. When it comes to some of these animals, there are a lot that I could say. I wish I'd go out and get a arboreal set up and get this set up and do this and do that, but I have to hone myself back in because you have to realize just because you have $1,000 to go buy this animal does not mean that you're good. Because if the animal's $1,000 and it's an arboreal setup that requires a certain humidity, and you try to flip up a 40-gallon fish tank and make it converted and just have it right, um, you might be having some issues. And then not only are you out the $70 that you went and tried to find the fish tank off Craigslist, but you're out the $1,000 that you spent on the animal because you wanted to cut corners with the setup. In our local group, I see it kind of often. Any cheap reptiles? There
No
isn't
such
any cheap
thing.
reptiles. I don't care if it's a $10 freaking uh frog or whatever. I mean, you still have you know I don't know, man. Hell, breeding insects ain't cheap. Breeding getting bedding isn't cheap. I mean, there's no cheap reptile. I don't there's none. So people need to get that out of their head, and stay in your lane and know what you can and can't afford, and know if you're doing it for the right reasons or not. If you're doing it for clout, look good and to get likes on your post and this and that, something's gonna go bad for you. I'm gonna tell you right now, and it may happen sooner than later. And unfortunately, those of us who really take pride in what we do and critique ourselves every day still, example, have things that happen to us,
Right.
unfortunate deaths of animals, or something that we still can't to this day figure out, but we think about it because that don't sit right with us. We have to be able to grow and get better constantly, because that is the nature of the reptile keeping hobby for those who actually are invested in what they're doing and in themselves and in their animals and wanting to get better. That is how this goes. Elliot said he came to support Elliot Perez. My man comments on. I know he's done comment on some of your stuff. He comments on every single Instagram post. I appreciate the support, brother. Justin, my animal house, what's going on, man? Yeah, man. Uh, definitely have to know what you're getting yourself into. Do your research, know what the animal requires, and know what you're getting into all in all. Last question here I'm gonna take is from Janie Marie, and she says, what causes kinks in snakes? Would it have something to do with genetics and incubation as well? And how would a kink affect the animal? And we kind of touched on this earlier. Yes, you are correct. It does mostly come from genetics and incubation. But as far as it's case by case. It's just like the shark jaw that I was talking about with my babies. They could go on to thrive and make it. They could not. I don't know. Kinks depends on where it is in the snake, and how severe it is in the snake. I've seen some adults with some highly questionable kinks of, I don't know, that breeder really took a chance on seeing if that animal will get established. I'm on the end of, I like to give everything a real good fighting chance. And I don't know, it's tough calls when it comes to the deformities and stuff like that. But yes, you're correct. It's incubation and temperature or genetics, combination of those is what causes kinks and stuff. Elliot says he just started to follow you as of today. Really? He saying follows everybody.
I appreciate that. Much love. It definitely follow me on YouTube and Instagram, DWxotics. Yep. I'm everywhere. TikTok as well.
Yeah, I was about to say you seen you're on TikTok, and
yeah, I just started recently. I did a video talk about like when you meet new reptile keepers. And, I was doing a little dance, and that's probably like one of my most popular ones. And I went from 150 followers to 800 in like 3 days. I'm like, oh shit!
Oh, really? On TikTok?
Yeah. Wow. So it's kind of dope. I had to get my niece to help me, man. I was like, I can't figure this out. My niece is 10.
Yeah.
So, or 11. So I'm like, hey, I need you to come help me. So she showed me how to, do the little green screen thing, and we've been rolling ever since. But yeah, it's been cool. I'm just really trying to, spread the, education, have fun with it. I don't know about you, but being black in this field is another thing as well. So, you talk to people. I've already had, some people be racist, and it's just like, it is what it is. So that's really why I try to, hone in on my education. Not that I have anything to prove, but it's nice when you know what you're talking about, when people can come and talk to you, or people don't expect you to know the amount that you know. So it's just like, hey, I'm a walking encyclopedia, baby. You don't know what I know. So I just try to be about my business, man, but have fun with it. And not worry too much about the small stuff, man.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
At the end of the day, passion is for the animals. I mean, and that's what I'm here for. Have fun, and that's it.
For sure. And again, if you all haven't checked out his Instagram or YouTube, his channel at all, you need to. My guy definitely has a confident and cool swagger to all of his videos, because he is confident in himself and feels that he is doing what he should do. At the end of the day, like I was speaking about, he does everything that he feels like he needs to be doing, whether the camera's on or the camera's off. And that shows in your animals and in your videos. So like I said, again, if y'all haven't already, definitely go check out his videos. One of the few people that I actually enjoyed watching videos of like informational content. Some people just get off on a I don't know, man, like that, that fame chasing type of, mentality.
Like you can tell, like that whole, you can just, everything about the video just got clout written all over it.
Yeah.
You just be like, and then 9 times out of 10, they're getting on there with, an animal that 5 million people have done videos on. So you just getting on here, regurgitating the information that's already there. So just like, but yet they still get thousands of views. So,
excuse me. Don't get me wrong. Thank you. I love dope content.
For sure.
And some people have thousands and thousands of viewers that are on that train, and they put out dope content, and I can't help but watch it.
I like when it's natural. You can
Yeah,
always tell when it's forced or like I don't I don't like when I get on YouTube and it sounds like I'm watching reality TV. Like
yeah, for
why does it
sure,
sound scripted?
for sure.
But yeah, I definitely got, I'm saying, some channels that I like to watch. Whether it's while I'm editing or I'll watch some of them while I'm working. I love them.
Yeah, for sure, man. All right, man. Well, we're at 2 hours and 10 minutes. It's been
Oh
a
yeah, man.
great cold-blooded talk with your brother,
Most
and I
definitely, man.
appreciate you coming on and spreading your love and knowledge and passion for the reptiles that you keep, and the passion for the reptile keeping community.
Appreciate you
Um,
having me, man.
no problem
My
at all, man.
first podcast, man. So for sure.
Well, I appreciate you letting me have you on for your first podcast, and you did great. If anybody doesn't have anything else to ask Dré, we're gonna end it here and have a good night. Let's see here. I'll go ahead and let people see if they have any questions and do the cold seat questions with you as well. I it's kind of having a different vibe for this podcast because, like I said, you're the first person that I had on that isn't per se right now a breeder. I know we had kind of talked backstage, and you may have some plans in the future to breed, but you're just in it for the love and the passion of the animals that you keep, man. And I think that's awesome. And some of these questions kind of really they pertain to the breeders, but I'll leave those out, and I'm gonna give you some of these questions here.
Okay.
So they're just quick questions. You answer either or, just pass if you don't want to answer it. No big deal.
Okay.
You prefer in a rack situation or an enclosure, belly heat or back heat?
Belly for sure.
Belly. Are you a live or frozen feeder?
Frozen.
Frozen. You breed feeders or you buy your feeders?
I buy.
Buy.
They already did.
Yeah. Don't gotta deal with it. Less
Right.
stressful. I'm switching all mine over to fresh killed. I breed my feeders, but I think in the long run, it's a lot easier to have them to be able to take frozen thawed or fresh killed if need be. Right.
Right.
Are you paper or cocoa substrate? Or depends.
Oh, cocoa.
Cocoa.
But that mostly cocoa. But I mean, again, if animals in quarantine or something like that, we're gonna do some paper.
Gotcha. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much all the questions. So again, like I said, if anybody doesn't have anything else to ask Dré, we'll go ahead and end it here. Again, brother, appreciate you coming on.
Oh man,
and
it's been a pleasure, man. I'd love to be back sometime, man.
Yeah, we'll have to make our rounds back around to everybody and get on some of my favorites. And this has definitely been one of my favorites so far. Very knowledgeable guy.
That.
I appreciate your time again, brother. You have a great night. And everybody watching, I appreciate y'all tuning in, and y'all have a great night as well.
All right, man. You too.
See you.